Hey everybody, I'm Trubiak and welcome to CC's Vinyl Closet. Today I'm going to give you guys my top 5 favorite Loretta Lynn albums of all time. Come on, be sure to hit that like button down there and subscribe to my channel. If you've watched CC's Vinyl Closet, you might already know that I'm a huge fan of Loretta Lynn, the queen of country music. Sadly, the world is grieving right now as we just lost Loretta on October 4th, 2022, at the age of 90 years old. But what an incredible career. It's my goal this weekend to rejoice in the music that she left for all of us, a career which spanned 6 decades in country music. And between 1963 to 2021, she recorded over 60 albums, of which I have 55 in my personal collection. I knew this weekend was going to be spent immersed in these records, with the intention of whittling them all down to these are my top 5 favorite Loretta Lynn records, but I am not ranking them. I'm gonna present them to you in chronological order. First up, one of my favorite Loretta albums happens to be her debut studio album, Loretta Lynn Sings, released on December 9th, 1963 on Decca Records and produced by Loretta's longtime producer Owen Bradley. There's a total of 12 tracks on this album, 3 of which are written by Loretta herself, who we all know is one of the greatest songwriters in country music. The big hit off this record that many might be familiar with is Success, which was written by Johnny Mullins. This was a top 10 hit. Success has made a failure of our home. The reasons I love this record so much are because I love hearing artists, including Loretta, at the beginning of their careers. And Loretta's voice in the beginning of it all was full and rich and really well suited to the songs here. Her producer, Owen Bradley, was known for being the architect of that Nashville sound of country music that was emerging from Music Row in the 1950s and throughout the 60s. And it's great hearing this real honky-tonkin' style. There's lots of prominent bass and catchy piano solos. Loretta sounds really beautiful crooning these really simple songs. And for any naysayers out there who think that country music is all whiny and depressing, just listen to this record. It's fun and it's varied in sounds. So there's several highlight songs on this record that I really, really love. Number 1 being the hit single Success, but I also really love the song Act Naturally that she does, which has a real cool rhythm and blues style to it. Another great song is called The Other Woman, and I think one of my current favorites right now is called Color of the Blues, which was written by George Jones. I highly recommend this album. Next up, my second favorite Loretta Lynn record is 1965's gospel country record called Hymns. This was Loretta's 5th solo studio album and her first gospel album. It was released on November 15th, 1965 on Decca Records. This has 12 gospel and inspirational songs that were either popular over the years or were written by Loretta for this album. It peaked at number 10 on the Billboard charts, and the reason I really love this record so much and really recommend it to people is because although I'm not a religious person myself, listening to Loretta do this style of music was the equivalent of being wrapped in the warmest golden light. And I love her way of telling stories and connecting with the listeners. Loretta had a deep faith, and that faith pours out of so much of her music naturally, but this album is a must listen. Highlight songs for me include Where No One Stands Alone, Where No One Stands Alone. Another one I really love is There'll Be Peace in the Valley, or If I Could Hear My Mother Pray Again. That's a really sweet one as well. And Loretta's very own Everybody Wants to Go to Heaven is a really catchy song. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Third up on my top 5 favorite Loretta Lynn albums is the 1972 duet album with Conway Twitty called Lead Me On. This is actually the second collaborative studio album between Conway and Loretta, 2 longtime partners in music. This was released on January 17th, 1972, produced again by Owen Bradley. It peaked at number 2 on the Billboard charts, and the single, Lead Me On, hit number 1. I love this record mainly because it's such a joyous and jubilant record, full of harmony between these two dynamic voices. It's soulful, there's harmonies by the Jordanaires, and steel guitar by John Huey. This is just joyful sounds combined together. This is definitely countrypolitan compared to the early recordings and that Nashville sound. The highlight songs for me, of course, are the familiar hit single Lead Me On by Leon Copeland. Lead me on and take control of how I feel. Never-Ending Song of Love is also a really fun song by Delaney Bramlett. Playing House Away from Home is another great hit. And Easy Loving, actually quite a sexy song between Conway and Loretta. Definitely one of my top 5 favorites. Number 4 of my top 5 favorite Loretta Lynn albums takes us all the way to her 25th solo studio album called Back to the Country. This was released on February 3rd, 1975 on MCA Records, and it was produced by Owen Bradley. The album's single, The Pill, became one of Loretta's most controversial songs for its topic of birth control. And get this, it was actually banned on a number of radio stations. It was apparently her best-selling single of the decade. None of these songs on the record were actually written by Loretta, but it's one of those real down-to-earth mid-1970s albums that sort of borders on being a little corny sometimes, which I'm not mad at all. But the way that Loretta interprets other people's lyrics is really beautiful. In fact, this record is one of my favorites because of the song You Love Everybody But You, which was written by Tom T. Hall. This is Loretta Lynn, the friend, the one singing directly at you, and it really feels that way. And in fact, I love this song so much. This was one of those ones I kept putting the needle back, and I had to repeatedly listen to it to sing along with it sometimes. Other times, just listening to the beautiful sounds of the harmonica, of the guitar, of her beautiful voice, sounding like she's just singing it directly to you. She's giving it to you straight, the way Loretta can as your friend and your ally. And I love that about Loretta. Highly recommend Back to the Country. My 5th and final favorite album by Loretta Lynn is Van Lear Rose. Van Lear Rose was Loretta's 42nd solo studio album, released on April 27th, 2004 by Interscope Records. This album was produced by Jack White of the White Stripes, and it peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Country Albums chart. I talked a lot about this particular collaboration in CeCe's Vinyl Closet, the series, so I'll try to sum it up as quickly as I can and boiling down to why it's one of my favorite 5 albums. I love this album so much because it presents a really refreshing and alternative take on country music comparatively to all of her other previous work, which was beautiful in its own distinctive way. And similarly, I said this earlier that I love hearing Loretta's early recordings to hear that beautiful purity in all its untouched glory. But here, by contrast, it's really moving to listen and hear Loretta's voice and interpretation of songs after so much life experience. There's a deepness, a richness, a wisdom that just shines through on this record, and it's very personal. I love this record because it's edgy, and the guitar that's provided by Jack White and his production just adds some electricity and grit and reminds people, that Loretta Lynn, even after all these years, is still woman enough. Highlight tracks for me are Van Lear Rose, Portland, Oregon, Trouble on the Line, Family Tree, and Miss Being Mrs., which is just a really beautiful confessional love song. It seems directly to her husband, Dewey, who had passed on, and it's just so touching. Oh, I miss being Mrs. tonight. Folks, I just gotta recommend that album to you. I'm also going to give a real quick honorable mention to Honky Tonk Angels, which was released in 1993 and showcases Loretta and Dolly and Tammy, 3 amazing angels. I felt like I had to mention it as an honorable one because I don't have it on vinyl, so technically it shouldn't be included, but it's just such a fantastic album produced by Steve Buckingham, and it's for all fans of any one of these 3 angels. And for anybody here who kind of notices this swanky Loretta Lynn sweater that I'm wearing here, this is after the creation of some paper dolls that I turned into some merch. So if anyone wants one of these Loretta Lynn sweaters for themselves, click the link down below. I'm selling them on my Redbubble shop. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 favorite Loretta Lynn albums. Maybe in another couple of months or something, I will come up with the next top 5 Loretta Lynn albums because there is so much beautiful music in her catalog. Take care of yourselves, guys. Bye.